Beruchim haboim. Welcome everyone. We're about to begin Be'ezras Hashem together on Daf Lamed Vov Amud Aleph. Second line from the top. After the Gemara was miyashev the stira, the apparent contradiction within Rabbi Meir, the Gemara now focuses attention on Rabbi Yossi, what seems to be also a contradiction. Rabbi Yossi was quoted in the Brisa stating that when it comes to Tumah D'Rabbanan, a person who is Tameh Midrabbanan and then is Toivil, and it's a suffix whether he was Toivil either entirely in the mikvah, or he had a chatzitza, or whether he was Toivil entirely, but whether he was Toivil in a mikvah that was kosher or not. So we say, according to Rabbi Yossi, the din is that he is Tameh. Misafek, we say that he remains Tameh. Yet, in our Mishnah, it stated that a truma that became tmeya, and it was also a suffix whether it was tmeya mi ba'od yoim or after teisa koichavim. Rabbi Yossi seems to rule that we go lekula. So here we have a contradiction. Says the Gemara, Kashid Rabbi Yossi ad Rabbi Yossi. Answers the Gemara, Amar Rav Huna bar Chinana Shaini Tuma Hoyel v'yesh la iker min haTorah. When it comes to tuma, although it's tuma midrabanan, but since we have tuma that is diaraisa, and there we say when a person is tamei midiaraisa, for example, he came in contact with a sheretz, so we say if he has a suffix tevila, we go lechumra, and we go baster the chazaka de mi'ikara, and he remains tamei. So too then, when it comes to a tuma midrabanan, we'll also then say that we won't want to be mezalzel, and therefore we'll rule the chumrah and say that he remains tamei. Ask the Gemara, Shabbos nami de'araisa, but Shabbos also is de'araisa, and therefore when it comes to then the eruv, the same way that we don't want to then be mezalzel in Shabbos, and therefore we'll go l'chumrah. So too when it comes to the eruv tchumim, when it comes to truma that was nitmes, then we should also rule l'chumrah, and yet Rabbi Yossi seems to say lekula. Answers the Gemara, Kesav Rabbi Yossi tchumin derabanan. That's because no, tchumin is midirabanan, and therefore, unlike when it comes to the case of tuma, we say that even midirabanan we want to be machmir, because we don't want a person to then be maker when it comes to tuma deraisa. When it comes to tchumin is dirabanan, and that won't have any ramification on other malachos. So if we're makil in regards to truma, because it's tchumin which is dirabanan, we will not come to be makil on other malachos that are diraisa. V'bois ema, alternatively you can say hadidei hadirabe, that which it states in this brisa of tuma, that's really the shita of Rabbi Yossi himself, who is machmir. However, in the Mishnah, he is stating not his own shita, he's stating the shita of his rabbeim. Deikanami, let us medayik this also from the Mishnah. Diktani, Amar Rabbi Yossi, Av tulmus heid mishum chamisha zkenim shesofek eruv kosher. That Rabbi Yossi states in the name of Av tulmus that he was made in the name of 5 elderly sages, that when it comes to a suffix, eruv, then it's kosher, meaning that he is saying in the name of Avtulmus, but he himself does not hold that way. Shmamina, we can derive that indeed Rabbi Yossi holds l'chumra, and it's only his rabbeim that are going misveike l'kula. Rava Amar, Rava gives a third alternative pshat to then miyashev the contradiction. Hasam Hainu time Rabbi Yossi hemei tamei al hechezkosoi ve'ema lo toval. In the case of where a person is tamei, then Rabbi Yossi he goes basar the chazaka. The chazaka of that person who was tamei, who then we have a suffix whether he was toivel or not. We say you go after the chazaka and he remains tamei. Ask the Gemara, Adarabba. If you're going to say that, then Hem made mikveh al chezkosoi ve'ema loy chaser. If that's the case, you want to go bust the chazaka. Say that when he was toivel in the scenario where we don't know if it was a mikveh that was 40 saw or a mikveh that was not kosher. Say that we have a chazaka, or rather in the case that he was toivel in a mikveh that we don't know whether it remains kosher or not if it had 40 saw in it. Let us say we go after the chazaka, that it had 40 saw beforehand, and therefore he made a good tevila. Says the Gemara, b'mikveh shelo nimdad. We're talking about any mikveh that was not measured beforehand. We don't know that it really had 40 saw to begin with. So there is no chazaka. But when there is a chazaka, Rabbi Yossi then does say, then you can rely on that chazaka, and therefore you go lechumra in the case of the tuma, whereby he remains tameh, and in the case of the truma, since the truma had a chazaka of being tahara, being tahar before ben hashmashos, therefore we remain with that chazaka and say that it remains also a valid truma. The Gemara now brings the following brayse Tanya. Keitzad Omer Rabbi Yossi Safek Eruv Kosher. The brayse states, when did Rabbi Yossi say that a Safek Eruv is kosher? Here we're going to state when it's a certain Safek, he says it's kosher, and then he's going to state when it's a different type of Safek, it is not kosher, as follows. Eruv b'truma. If he wants to then make an Eruv using truma, depends on the Safek. If it's a Safek mi ba'odyom nitmei, Safek meshachashechat nimes, it's a Safek whether it became tamei mi ba'odyom or only after Shabbos started. V'chein bepeiros, Safek mi ba'odyom niskanu, Safek meshachashecha niskanu, or in regards to the peiros that you want to use for your Eruv, it's a Safek whether those peiros were taken trumas and maestros from, or mi ba'odyom before the previous day, or only after Chashecha. So Zehu Safek Eruv Kosher. Here Rabbi Yossi states in such a case of Safek Eruv, we're going to say it's kosher. Aval Eruv B'Truma, in a case of different Sveika, of Eruv B'Truma, where it's Safek Tahara, Safek Tmeya, we don't know if it was Tahor or not. V'chein B'Peiros, Safek Niskana, Safek Lo Niskana. Or in the case of Peiros, we don't know whether at all they were taking Trumas and Maisus from. Ein zeh Safek Eruv kosher. Then it's not going to be kosher because in the latter Sveikus, here there's no such thing as a chazaka. Whereas in the first, the ratio of this brisa, Rabbi Yossi is talking about a Safek that had a chazaka. So therefore, in the case, for example, of Truma, we don't know whether it became Tameh before Mod Yom or only after Tzeis HaKrechavim. So then we can rely on the Chazaka that it was Tahor. Similarly, when it comes to the Peiros. Ask the Gemara, Maishna Truma Damrina Hemod Truma al Chazaka Ve'ema Taharhi. If you're going to say that you rely on the Chazaka in the Reisha, where the Truma we can say that it only became Tameh only after Tzeis HaKrechavim, and therefore it's a valid Truma to make Eruv. Then if you're going to say you're relying on the Chazaka, then be consistent. Then Peiros Nami Hemit Tevel Achazkasa Ve'ema Lo Niskanu. If we're going to say that it's a Safek whether he took Tremis and Meisers Mi Ba'odyom or after Tzeis HaKrechavim, then we should also rely on the Safek, and on the Chazaka, and say, Mi Chazaka, the Chazaka says that it was Tevel. In other words, just like we're relying on the Chazaka Grabe the Truma and say it's Tahor, so too we should rely on the Chazaka regarding the Peiros and say that the Chazaka is that it's Tevel, that Trumas and Maisers did not yet be taken out. Answers the Gemara, Lotema Safeng Mi Ba'odyom Niskanu. You're right. Do not say that the Brisa means to say that the Trumas and Maisers have a suffix whether it was taken out mi bod yom or after Tzeis HaKrechavim. Ella ema suffix mi bod yom nidmeu. Suffix hashecha nidmeu. Rather, we're talking about the nidmeu. That means that it was really already taken out Trumas and Maisers, but Truma fell into these peiros. On that we have a suffix. When did this happen? Did it happen mi ba'od yom or after Tzeis HaKrechavim? So then it will be the same chazaka that we say gabi truma, and therefore we can go lekula. Boy, Rav Shmuel bar Rav Yitzchak me Rav Huna, he has a question. Hayu lefanav shtei kikaros. If you have 2 loaves of bread that are truma, achas tmeya va'achas tahara, ve'omar irvu li betahara bekol makom shehi. and you say that these two loaves, I don't know which one is tar, which one is tamei. They're both truma, but I want to use the loaf that is tahor, because I cannot use the loaf that is tamei. I want to use the loaf that is tahor for my eruv. So one of these two loaves is tahor, and therefore I want to use that for my eruv. What's the din? Is that going to be valid or not? Tiboy le Rabbi Meir, Tiboy le Rabbi. It's going to be a question both according to Rabbi Meir and according to Rabbi Yossi. Tiboy le Rabbi Meir, because ad kan lo kom Rabbi Meir hasam de leket tahara. Ha 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 iketara. It'll be a question according to Rabbi Meir, because Rabbi Meir maybe says he's machmir over there in the case where he doesn't know if there's something that's tahor. But here, certainly one of these loaves is tahor. So maybe he would be mekil. O Dilma, afilu Rabbi Yossi loika omar ela hasan di'im isa dihitara yadala aval hacha hadala yadala. Or Rabbi Yossi would say over there he's mekil because he knows that it's going to be indeed what this is, and therefore you can rely on the chazaka. But over here, you don't know if this loaf is tamei or this loaf is tahor. Omar lei. According to either Shita, Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Meir, you don't have a suda that you could have eaten mi'ba'od yom, and therefore it's not going to be a valid eruv. Since over here we're talking about a scenario where one of these loaves is tamei, we don't know which one. Boy, Rav Nachman asked the following question to Rav Nachman. Kikar zu hayoim chol ulamachar kodesh. He says this loaf of bread today is chol, but tomorrow, meaning on Shabbos, is kodesh. I want to sanctify it. Ve'omar eruvu li bezeh. And he says, I want to then use this kikar for my eruv. What is the din? Can he use such a kikar that he says today it's chol, but tomorrow it's going to be kodesh or not? Omale eruv eruv. It's a valid eruv. After all, his intention seems to be that he wants that it should be only going to be kodesh after today. Hayoim kodesh ulamachar chol. Another scenario, the opposite, where today the bread is kodesh, it's consecrated, but the next day he already wants it to be chol. He wants to be chol on Shabbos. So what's his din? I want to use this loaf for my eruv. Again, this loaf today is kodesh, but tomorrow I want it to be chol. So what is going to be the din? Can I use this kikar as an eruv or not? Or marle ein eruva eruv. Here, Rav Nachman says it's not going to be a good eruv. My shna asks Rava, what is the difference? If in the first case, where today is going to be chol and tomorrow kodesh, and we say it's going to be a valid eruv because it's going to be chal only, his intention that should be chal only afterwards, so then that's going to be a good eruv. Let's be consistent, say over here as well. When today is going to be kodesh and tomorrow chol, we should say in the beginning of meaning at the end of the day, the beginning, the Bein HaShmoshes, should already be then something that's going to be chol, and therefore should be a valid eruv as well. Let's be consistent. Or Malay, Rav Nachman says back to Rava, if you'll give me a measurement of a kur of salt, then I'll come to then explain to you why there's this distinction. And he explains, the reason why in the first scenario when today is chol, the kikar is chol, and tomorrow you want it to be kodesh, is because from safek, the halacha doesn't then change and say it becomes kodesh. And therefore, now it's chol, and therefore it doesn't then become kodesh until actually the onset of Shabbos. And that point in time, the eruv is chal. Hayoim kodesh ulamachar chol. In the scenario where today the kikar is kodesh and lamachar it's chol, then the halacha says misveika lamafkalei mikedusha zaminei. The halacha doesn't say that you take away the kedusha that was on this bread, and therefore it remains kodesh until the onset of Shabbos, whereby it's going to be then not valid for an eruv. So therefore, we go basar not the intent, but rather we go basar what is going to be the halacha in terms of the status of this bread. Is it going to be chol or is it going to be kodesh? We can't mafkia the kedusha if it's already kodesh, and we can't make kedusha on something that was already chol. The Gemara now brings the following Mishnah Tanan. It states, Hasam over there, login tvul yom. If you have a wooden pitcher that is tvul yom, the status of this pitcher is tvul yom, meaning to say that it was nitbal in a mikvah, but it has to be then waiting until Herev Shemesh in order to become something that's tahor. Now, it states over here in the Mishnah, Shimileu min hachavis shel meiser tevel. We took wine that was in a chavis, and they wanted to separate the meiser rishon from this wine, from this chavis. So they took meiser rishon, a tenth of it, and they put it into this wooden login. Now, at this point in time, it's tevel, because the Levi has to take trumas meiser and give it to the kohen. He has to take 10% and give of that meiser rishon to the kohen. Now, if he were to do that right now, before the Herev Shemesh, before the Seisa Kochavim, then it would become truma and it would metame it would become tummy because of the kli, the login would then metame it. But right now, because it's not kodesh, only if it become right now, it will not metame it, because if it's not going to become the truma is not going to be taken off. So right now it's considered to be tevel and it does not become tummy. However, if it's only going to then become meistered out after Tzeisa Kochavim, then that would be a valid hafrasha, like the Gemara explains. V'amar harezu truma. The Mishnah explains. V'amar harezu trumas meister l'shech tershich. If he states that I want trumas meister to be taken out from this login, after Tzeisa Kochavim, then Dvar of Kayami, it's valid, because again, this kli is going to become tohor after nightfall, whereby the truma will then be valid and not become tameh as a result. So his Dvar Mar Kayami, the truma, can then be taken out from that trumas meiser, from that meiser rishon. Vim Omar, if it's Erev Shabbos and he states, Eruv li bezeh, I want this to become my Eruv for Shabbos, Loy Omar Klum. The Mishnah concludes, then he didn't say anything. It's not valid for an Eruv. Omar Rava says, Zois Omeres, Soif Hayom, Koina Eruv. From here we can learn out then that the end of the day, referring to the end of Friday, a person is Koina Eruv. And therefore, since at the end of Friday, the beginning of the Ben Hashmoshois, that would make it so that it's not a valid Eruv, because he could not be koine the Eruv, since it's tevel at that point in time. On top of Lamed Vav Amud Beis, the Isalke daitach tchilas hayom koine Eruv, because if he would say that he's koine the Eruv in the beginning of Friday night, meaning of Shabbos, at the end of Ben Hashmoshois, if he said that I want this to be my Eruv, why is it not going to be working? Why would it not be viable? Hare, he would be then koine the Eruv at the time that it's no longer tevel, at the time that it's going to be trumas meister taken from it. And therefore it should be valid as an Eruv. So we see again, Rava maintains, from here we see that a person is koine only at the end of Friday, the beginning of Ben Hashmoshois. Answers the Gemara, Amar Papa, you have no proof from here. Why? Because afilu tema tchilas hayom koine eruv. Even if you want to say the beginning of Friday night of Shabbos, that means the end of Ben Hashmoshois is the time that you're koine eruv. Ba'ina suda haruya mi ba'odyom v'leka. You would require to be able to eat the suda on Friday afternoon mi ba'odyom. And that you can't do because it's tevel. Therefore, he was not able to use this as his eruv.